NHL regular season recap night 87. We get things started with an absolute ass kicking at the hands of the Toronto Maple Leafs over the San Jose Sharks. It's a 7-1 final here in this one. In the first, Mo Riley and Austin Matthews with the 2 goals. In the second, it's Marner, Holmberg, and then Henry Thrun with his first goal of his NHL career. In the third, McCabe, Marner with another, and then Robertson caps things off with a pretty nice one, one-handed over the pad of Kaapo Kähkönen. It's 2 goals, 2 assists for Marner, 3 assists for Willie Nylander, a goal, 2 assists for Jake McCabe. A solid night once again for Marty Jones, 22 on 23 shots. For Kähkönen, 16 of 20. A huge win for the Leafs here. Game 2, the Lightning taking on the LA Kings in a pretty highly anticipated game for me here. No goals in the first. In the second, the Kings get 2. Phil Deneau and Matt Roy with his second of the year, both in the second half of the period. So it looks really promising for the Kings headed to the third. But in the third, Tyler Mott and Brandon Bagel make it 2-2. We head to overtime where Nick Perbix end up scoring the game winner. It's a 3-2 final here for the Bolts. A good game from Vasi, 20 of 22 for him. Cam Talbot, 26 of 29 in the losing effort. The Kraken taking on the Buffalo Sabres, and the Kraken just continue to roll through pretty much everyone in the league. They win this one by a final score of 5-2, and Joey Daccord once again is phenomenal. In the first, Skinner actually opens the scoring, making it 1-0 just 5 minutes in, but Yanni Gourde and Vince Dunn both score to make it 2-1 after 1. In the second, Alex Tuch ties the game pretty early on, less than a minute in, but then it's Wenberg, Schwartz, Beniers all scoring in the second. We have no goals in the third. It sticks at 5-2 after 2. Devin Levi, not a great night, just 21 of 26, while once again, Joey Daccord is phenomenal. 36 of 38. He's been arguably the best goalie in the NHL over the last month or so. The Canucks taking on their second New York team in 2 days, which means Casey DeSmith gets to start in this one. And he, much like Thatcher Demko last night, has a pretty solid performance, though he did not need to be anywhere near as good as Demko was last night. In the first, Philip Hronek gets things going, and then just 2 minutes later, Quinn Hughes makes it 2-0 early on, so the 2 big D-men chipping in early on here. In the second, Elise Pettersson makes it 3-0 about halfway through before Brock Nelson breaks the shutout bid for DeSmith, making it 3-1. But before the period could wrap up, Tyler Myers, the third defenseman on the score sheet tonight, makes it 4-1 in favor of the Canucks. Brock Nelson would add his second of the night with 5 minutes to play, but Dakota Joshua throws the empty netter in, and it's a 5-2 final in favor of Vancouver, who continues their chase down of the Winnipeg Jets for the top spot in the NHL. Ilya Sorokin had some pretty good stops tonight. The stats don't really do him justice. He stops 29 of 33. Again, Casey DeSmith, a .900 save percentage, stopping 18 of 20. The Nashville Predators taking on the Anaheim Ducks in a battle between 2 of the more undersized goalie in the league, that being Lucas Dostal and Juuse Saros. And Lucas Dostal has another really, really solid game in this one. The Ducks go up early. They go up 3-0 after 1 with goals from Strome, Vetrano, and McTavish. In the second, Troy Terry scores his 10th to make it 4-0. And in the third, Radko Gudas with his 6th makes it 5-0 3 minutes in. Before the Preds decide to get on the board, Alex Carrier, Phil Tomasino, and Dennis Gurianov all score for the Predators. It's a 5-3 final in favor of Anaheim. Lucas Dostal, 39 of 42. He was the busier of the 2 goalies, but had a phenomenal game. Juuse Saros, a bit of a rough start, but evened out a bit at the end. The stat line doesn't look great, but 28 of 33 and .848 save percentage in the losing effort. It's a big win for the Ducks, who just gave up Jamie Drysdale. It's kind of a prove-it game for them, so it's a good win despite it not meaning too much in the standings. For Nashville, though, it's a big loss. The Blue Jackets taking on the Winnipeg Jets, and as expected, the top-seeded Winnipeg Jets take care of business in this one, despite getting outshot by Columbus. In the first, Brendan Dillon gets his 6th of the year to make it 1-0. In the second, it's Perfetti and Morrissey that make it 3-0 for the Jets. In the third, Perfetti with another, his 14th of the year, and Gabe Vilardi on the power play make it a 5-0 final. Not really too much to discuss in this one. Connor Hellebuck with, I believe, his 34th career shutout, 29 of 29 for him. Daniil Tarasov, not a great game, just 18 of 23. He was not very busy. Did not make enough saves, but of course, as I always say, you got to score if you want your team to win, and that did not happen tonight for Columbus. A good game for Connor Hellebuck and the Jets all around. The Florida Panthers taking on the St. Louis Blues, and despite some of his recent efforts, Joel Hofer was not all that great tonight, but Matthew Tkachuk was. It's a 5-1 victory for Florida, who, like Winnipeg, has been rolling pretty strong lately. Braden Shen opens the scoring just 3.5 minutes in, but that's the only goal the Blues would score. From there, it's Kevin Stenlund who ties it in the first. Sam Reinhart scores his 29th of the year in the second, and then in the third period, it's 3 consecutive goals for Matthew Tkachuk, 2 of them with the goalie in net, 1 of them an empty netter, and a 5-1 final for the Panthers. Anthony Stolarz, 29 of 31, a pretty solid effort from him. For Joel Hofer, 26 of 30. Again, not his best night, could be worse, but just not quite enough to get the W here in favor of the Blues. 5-1 Panthers. The Blackhawks taking on the Edmonton Oilers in this one, and this probably was tighter than it should have been. It's just a 2-1 victory in favor of the Oilers. Stuart Skinner was the busier of the two goalie in a rare occurrence for Peter Mrazek, who has to face just 15 shots. He stops 13 of 15, not a good enough showing from him. Stuart Skinner, 25 of 26 in the victory. Jason Dickinson opens the scoring about 5.5 minutes in, and then a few minutes later, Leon Draisaitl ties the game at 1. We head to the second period where Connor McDavid scores about a minute and a half into that one, and that's the game-winning goal. Just a minute and a half into the second period, a surprisingly low-scoring game between two teams that generally can't keep the scores below that 6.5 line, but very much the case tonight. Again, as usual, a much-needed win for the Oilers, who I believe are up to 4th in the Pacific, 21-15-1, while the Blackhawks still buried at 8th in the Central, 12-27-2. The Ottawa Senators taking on the Calgary Flames, and the Kings of throwing leads have returned tonight. The Sens up 3-2 headed into the third, and they throw this one right in the dumpster. In the first period, it's JBD, Connor Zary, and Dominic Kubalik making it 2-1 after 1. In the second, Sharangovich and Brady Tkachuk both score, making it 3-2. And then in the third, it all goes downhill. Hanifin, Coleman, Sharangovich with his second, and Coleman with his second makes it a 6-3 final in favor of the Flames. Jacob Markstrom pretty solid on this one, 30 of 33. Korpisalo kind of fell apart at the end there. On just 10 shots, gives up 3 goals. 30 for 35 for him. It's another big loss for the Sens, Bigger win for the Flames. Again, they are now trying to catch both Edmonton and Seattle for a playoff spot in the Pacific. It's looking like it's getting tougher and tougher as each night passes, but they're not quite out of it yet, and this win is a big one for them. Final game of the night, the Bruins taking on the Arizona Coyotes at Mullet Arena, and this one ended up being a surprisingly entertaining game. David Pastrnak opens the scoring with his 25th of the year. Keller, Boqvist, and Gunther all score in the second to make it 2-2 after 2. In the third, it's both Maccelli and Jake DeBrusk within the first 5 minutes, so it stays 3-3. We head to overtime, where the biggest news of probably this entire game comes. Linus Ullmark looked to have tweaked something. He went for a really big, flashy, lunging glove save. I don't know if it was his back, his hip, whatever, but he comes out. Jeremy Swayman goes in cold in overtime, and on the first shot he faces, it's Nick Schmaltz that ends up being the overtime hero. A 4-3 victory for the Coyotes, but again, that news on Ullmark is going to be the biggest news we get from this game. Hopefully nothing too long-term, but he definitely looked to be in some pretty serious discomfort leaving the ice. Nonetheless, a big 4-3 win for the Yotes as they look to stay alive in the tough Central Division. That's it for NHL regular season recap night 87. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Just 3 games, but one of them is Vegas, Colorado, so at least we got that going for us. Talk to you guys then.